Hey guys, David of the Some Game Company here. Today I'm going to show you some updates to Gooleans. In this video I'm going to demonstrate a new object that I've created, which is an energy cannon. And I was wanting to create an object that gave us a little bit more flexibility and a couple different things that we could do with it as far as game mechanics and puzzles go. And I have to admit I'm a big fan of Portal, and I got a lot of inspiration from the ball of energy in that game that would bounce around and you would use to accomplish different tasks. So I've kind of created my own version of it in our game, and I think that so far it's not 100% complete, but what I have I think is a quality that I don't mind sharing. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in the game and give you a demonstration of how it works and kind of demonstrate some of the usage for it. Alright, so you see that there are three cannons in this map. Only one of these cannons, this cannon here, has power, and the way that you activate this cannon is with this switch. The other two cannons here are more or less dead and serve as relays. There's really nothing they can do without you giving it power from another item, and that's kind of the usage that I see with this, is being able to link them up and transfer energy from one cannon to the next. And I'll go into details on how I did that with the script, but let me go ahead and demonstrate the effect of the cannon itself, and then go in to show you how it actually links together and how you can transfer that energy. So here we go, we hit the switch, the cannon charges up, and it disperses the energy. Now the energy has nowhere to go, it travels for so long, and then once it doesn't find anything, it actually just goes away. It disperses into thin air. So if I take, and one thing you'll notice too is the handle on these cannons, and I've shown another cannon in some previous videos, and all that cannon in the previous videos did was shot a ball out, a cannonball that exploded, and if you were near the explosion, of course it would knock things off of you, and it'd pretty much knock you across the map. And you couldn't really manipulate it at all, other than shooting it to stun it. This cannon is not a cannon that is really an enemy, it's more or less a tool to accomplish different things within the levels and to complete puzzles. So I gave it a handle on it so that you could rotate it around and aim it at various things. It just gives the user a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more freedom to actually experiment and try different things. So what we're going to do is go ahead and aim this cannon toward the second cannon over here and turn it on and see what happens. A little tricky getting it to trim. I haven't really figured out a good value to set that turning to. So okay, here we go. Alright, transfer the energy. Now it's going to go to our third cannon. Transfer the energy, and it's going to shoot into thin air and disperse. So you can see how they link up, and the power is pretty much infinite. As long as you keep that ball of energy going back and forth or to another object, it'll keep going infinitely. Now another thing that I've thought of that will probably come in play in a future map is having to maintain that energy and not lose it. And to demonstrate that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to aim these two cannons at each other. There we go. And when I fire this energy off, it's going to hit the second cannon, hit the third cannon. The third cannon, it's going to toss it back to the second cannon, and essentially what we're going to have is an infinite loop of that energy being tossed back and forth. So this could go on pretty much forever until the level ends. like I said, the usage for this would be if we had a scenario where we had to maintain this energy and we didn't want to lose it, but we couldn't advance with it right now, we could go on and complete another task and come back and utilize that energy once you've completed that task. Alright, so just a quick demonstration of an easy usage for this ball of energy. I've got a fence here that I've built. I was demonstrating this fence in the last video update, and what I was using to operate it was a button. In this case, what we're going to do is we have this receiver here, or kind of a static relay that you can't do anything with, sitting up here in front of the gate. And this is probably not the final object that I'll use, but right now it'll do the job. And what I'm trying to tell the player is, okay, well, if you give this energy, it's going to have something to do with this gate here. So what we're going to do is go ahead and rotate this cannon here. See if we can line it up with that relay. We didn't do it. Just trim it a little bit more. There we go. Oh, lovely. So the time ran out on the game. Let's go ahead and launch it back up here. I should probably set that time something more than 2 minutes. Okay, go ahead and aim these at each other. There we go. Aim this at the stationary relay. There we go. Okay. Now, what this is going to do is open the gate and allow us access to the cow back here, and of course, unleash this guy right here. There we go. And that is a pretty easy way to utilize this energy. We can control, you know, various machinery or other things with that energy. So let me go ahead and show this guy off. Let me get him back up here. This is the lightning bug or firefly. I haven't introduced him to anyone yet. He is a new character, and he kind of fits the theme, so I thought I would go ahead and toss him in here since we're showing off the electric items. So you can see that he holds his finger out, and his finger has a charge, a static charge, and if he touches it, it shocks you, it lights you up, and you can see a little bone inside of the Ghoulian, as well as some electric bolts pulsating around the body. There we go. Alright, let me go ahead and show how we accomplish some of these things with the scripts. So let's go down to our script graph here. Alright, you're going to have to excuse some of the messy scripting. I haven't really had time to tidy it up. So these objects here, these groups here, this one and this one, these are two of our cannons and our third cannon down here. Now, the cannons are made up of several objects, as you can see, with a lot of logic nodes, timer nodes, and some switchers. And essentially what we have is the base object and a bunch of children object. One of the children objects are the electric bullets, or the cannon electric bullets. And how I make the bullet travel from point A to point B is by inputting a vector switcher through a vector smooth and then into the bullet object itself. Now, by default, the switcher has the value of the bullet set to the center of the cannon. And once the cannon is given power and those events start taking place, the vector switcher switches to another vector, and the position of that is actually right near the center of the cannon, or wherever you're aiming it at, I guess, directly north of the cannon that's firing. So, and in the way it does this, instead of just teleporting from point A to point B, is it goes through a vector smoother, and that vector smoother actually smooths out that path, or that point A to point B, so it looks like it's kind of traveling across instead of just teleporting back and forth. One of the things that we do to give the illusion that you're not recycling the bullet, because if it does go from point A to point B, it has to come back to point A to be used again. Is on its way back, what I am doing is I'm taking and I'm hiding it by changing its material to null, and I am turning its collidability off. That way it can't interact with anything else in the game on its way back. So it's only going to interact with something if it's traveling to and not from. The way we accomplish the transfer of energy, this is a little tricky. What we have here is a vector subtract. We're taking the world position of the bullet and then the world position of any of the turrets or different items that you're going to be transferring the energy to, and we're taking it and putting both of those into a vector subtract. We're taking the vector and we're converting the vector to length, and then we're going into an ABS with the length of the vector, and then that's taking it down to a float digit. Now this float will start decreasing as the two objects are getting closer together. Once they get to a certain point, I'm doing a comparison, and if it reaches that value I set in the comparison, it outputs true, and that output of true actually is what turns on the next item. So if that output is going into what triggers the next cannon, as soon as it hits it, that next cannon is going to start the firing sequence. And that's how the energy is actually being transferred. So another thing on these cannons that I've got is the handle, and the handle's pretty straightforward. I've kind of explained this in the last video with the gearbox. I have a zone in front of this handle here and a zone behind the handle. Both of those zones are hooked up to timers, and if the player is touching one of the zones, it either counts up or counts down depending on the zone it's touching. And when it counts up or counts down, the time is outputted from those nodes. Let me find one of them here. So let's take this zone for instance here, the one behind the handle. So if the player's touching it, it counts down. The time is outputted into a rotate node, a math node, and then the angle is actually outputted to the orientation of the cannon, and that's how the cannon actually rotates. And then of course you could specify the speed at which the timer counts, and that really dictates how fast that cannon will turn around when you're touching that zone. So far I think that's pretty much it for this week's update.